This meeting is called to order in accordance with the Open Public Meetings Law. In accordance with Chapter 231 of the Public Laws of 1975, adequate notice of this meeting has been provided. This meeting of Monday, May 19, 2025, was published in the Courier News and Star Ledger and placed on the Borough's website and bulletin board at Borough Hall. A copy of this notice is available to the public, and a copy of this statement shall be included in the minutes of this meeting. Mayor Brian Gallagher.
Here.
Council members, Teresa Bonner is excused this evening. Andrew Conti.
Here.
Glenn Denny.
Here.
Randy Pitts.
Here.
Gina Stravic.
Here.
Roger Vroom.
Here. Please stand for the salute to the flag. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, can I have a motion for approval of the minutes of May 5?
So moved.
Second?
Discussion? Roll call.
Council members, Andrew Conti.
Abstain.
Glenn Denny.
Yes.
Randy Pitts.
Yes.
Gina Stravic.
Yes.
Roger Vroom.
Yes.
All right, just a couple of reports and notices. Primary election day is June 10, 2025, and there is one polling location change in Somerville. Vanderveer Elementary School is no longer a polling location, and the replacement location is the Somerville Emergency Services Facility at 85 North Gaston Avenue. I'm sure folks are going to touch on it, but Memorial Day Parade is May 26th, beginning at Culver and High Street at the World War I Memorial. We'll be walking down High Street to Doughty, South Doughty, and down South Doughty to Maine with a quick stop at the Fire Museum, right, Rich? We're working on it. Then down Main Street to South Bridge, down South Bridge Street to the Somerville New Cemetery. At 10 a.m., we will be having a memorial service at the Somerville Cemetery. If you haven't been to it, I would highly encourage everybody to attend. It's a very moving, very thoughtful ceremony. It's not a long ceremony. It'll only be about a half hour, and I would highly encourage everybody to attend. And then obviously, post that, we have the Tour of Somerville bike races on Memorial Day, which are always an iconic event in downtown Somerville. Proclamations. We have Emergency Medical Services Week of May 18 through 24 with the motto of "This is EMS, we care for everyone." And to that end, we do have a proclamation, and we do have our squad chief, Mike Bigelow, here, along with representatives. So, Mike, I'm going to ask you to come up to the microphone. Gina, you want to come down? You're liaison of the squad. Get front and center. So, Mr. Bigelow, hang on, is this on? You got this? Yeah. So Mike Bigelow is the squad chief this year, and it's in his family blood. It's in his DNA. Every family member in the Bigelow family has been a part of the Somerville Rescue Squad, and I think that's absolutely awesome. So, first off, would you just introduce who's here?
Yep. I have my Deputy Chief of EMS, Alice Kondo, Deputy Chief of Rescue, Justin Bigelow, and my EMS Lieutenant, Lori Herbst.
Awesome. Thank you. And thank you for doing what you do every day. It's not an easy thing that you do, and to take time out from your families on a regular basis and provide for services for our people here in Somerville is it's a nice thing. And it's nice to have a known friendly face respond when somebody really needs it, and that's a great thing. So thank you. So Gina is the liaison to the rescue squad, and also a auxiliary member of the squad as well. So it gives us, on behalf of the council, great pleasure in providing this to you. So, whereas emergency medical services is an essential public safety service, and whereas the members of Somerville Rescue Squad are ready to provide life-saving emergency medical care and technical rescue services to those in need 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, And whereas access to quality emergency medical care dramatically improves the survival and recovery rate of those who experience sudden illness or injury. And whereas the mainstay of the Somerville emergency medical services system is volunteer in nature. And whereas the men, women, and cadets of Somerville Rescue Squad provide over 10,000 hours of community service to the citizens of Somerville. And whereas the Somerville Rescue Squad answered the call for help over 1,517 times in 2024. And whereas it is appropriate to recognize, value, and support the accomplishments of the Somerville Rescue Squad. Now therefore be it resolved that I, Brian Gallagher, Mayor of the Borough of Somerville, recognize the extraordinary efforts of the men and women of the Somerville Rescue Squad as well as their ongoing accomplishments and commitment to our community. Do hereby proclaim May 18 through 24 as Emergency Medical Services Week. We care for everyone in the Borough of Somerville, New Jersey. Thank you very much. And Gina, do you have anything you want to say?
Well, I have lived with a rescue squad member for 42 years, so I know what it's like to have them go out in the middle of the night. I know what it's like to have them come home with the cares of the worries of the world and what they just had to do on their shoulders. And I know the importance of their volunteer hours. So kudos to you all, and I'm proud to be part of your squad family.
Thank you. Okay, next up are committee reports. Gina, Andrew, sorry.
All good. Nothing to report this time. We haven't met. I'm looking forward to meeting this Thursday with the Historic Advisory Committee.
Great, all right, thank you. Gina?
The Board of Health meets this Wednesday on the 21st, 6 p.m. Over at the County Building on Warren Street. Anyone's welcome to attend. Bring your ideas and energy. I think we have a potential new member joining, so we'll let you know if we have a vacancy to fill, so if that person likes us. On the Rescue Squad meeting last week, I have to report that they have had 114 calls answered 114 calls in April, 22 fire alarms, and attended 2 events for our borough, 337 volunteer hours for the month of April. Again, I always stress the response time, as Brian said in the presentation. You want somebody that you know or a happy face at your door at the time of your crisis, and the response time locally is 5.4 minutes. So you're going to get some really quick service.
Awesome, great. Thank you. Glenn?
Great, thank you. The Environmental Commission met here last Monday, and to just report a few things. 19 different street trees were planted. Part of our street tree program. We try to plant sometimes in the spring, sometimes in the fall, sometimes both. There are over 90 people on the wait list, so if we could continue to figure out how to fund that and get more funding, we'd love to get more trees out there. Also, the community garden is up and growing, and it is starting to host events. The Girl Scouts will be visiting there on May 24th. And also, it received a $2,000 grant from Sustainable New Jersey to help those things and continue to grow there. Our next meeting for the Environmental Commission will be on Tuesday, June 10th. And then for the Tour of Somerville, as already was noted, America's longest running bike race. It's the 80th edition of the tour. Races will be held after the Memorial Day Parade and service there all day long, right on downtown Main Street. The Tour of Somerville Committee has been very busy planning it and orchestrating this. They were at the Somerset Patriots last week, showed off some of the refurbished trophies, which was excellent. And we will also be meeting with many of the volunteers this week and helping them organize and plan such this great event. Kudos to Pops and Mark there for helping to host that volunteer meeting. Check out all of the other information and specifics at tourofsomerville.com. It's all lowercase. It has schedules, event details, and lots of other things. And we are putting an order in for good weather. So that's my report.
Awesome, thank you. Randy?
Mayor, I have no announcements for this evening.
Okay, and Roger?
Helps if I turn my mic on. Just a reminder for folks to participate in the Family Fun Ride. That's every Memorial Day before the parade and before the races kick off. It's at 8 a.m. till the kickoff of the parade. Check-in time 7:30, right by Starbucks there at Davenport and Main Street, $5 per household. And everybody that rides must wear a helmet regardless of age. If you're not wearing a helmet, you're going to get escorted off of the racetrack. But again, families come on out, enjoy the family fun ride, stay for the parade, and enjoy the races for the rest of the day. So we hope to see you out there. Love to have as many families as we can tour the racetrack and enjoy the festivities.
Okay, great. All right, thank you. Let's go into discussion items. So the first up is the Skip the Stuff campaign, and I don't know, who from council?
So we have some visitors from the Environmental Commission that would love to give us an update on the Skip the Stuff campaign.
Good evening, Jerry DeSapio, 46 East Main Street. I'm here representing the Environmental Commission to discuss Skip the Stuff. The stuff, as we identify it, is the single-use accessories that restaurants give out to takeout orders. And basically, it's single-use items, plastic forks, knives, spoons, straws, napkins. And what we're asking for is that this be an opt-in, where restaurants don't automatically do it, but they actually give customers the opportunity to say, no, I don't need it. And what we're asking for is a resolution from the Borough Council that supports our campaign. The lead team on this is Jeff Lamborn, Sandy Benscoda, and myself. And Sandy and I canvassed all of the eateries on Main Street and Division Street. We were very well received, very enthusiastically received. We crafted a letter that you will have in your possession.
Yes,
you do
we
have
have
in your
it.
possession. And it explains what the campaign is. It was addressed to the business owners. There are 2 QR codes on it. The upper one is for a survey that we asked the owners to take. Unfortunately, very few came back, although the enthusiasm was face-to-face. The second QR code on the bottom takes you to a YouTube for 59-second video that a student did on why we shouldn't put plastic into the ocean and how to use it well. So actually, if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer, but basically that's what we did, and that's what we're asking, that we make this a resolution and not an ordinance. An ordinance has penalties with it, and the Environmental Commission has decided this would be better as a resolution.
Yeah, I laud the effort. And I think even before a resolution, what I would suggest, have you had any discussions with the DSA, the Downtown Somerville
Well, Jeff,
Association?
in March, I think it was March 3rd, he sent an email to Olivia and her assistant explaining what the campaign was. And if there were any questions that she had, I don't think he had any received from her. And it was sort of a preamble to, before we even talked to any of the restaurant owners, we did that through the DSA, making sure they knew what we were doing.
Yeah, I'm happy to see that it is an opt-in. My first blush at it, my understanding was that there was a request for an ordinance to be enacted.
Yeah.
And I don't know that really was the best avenue. The idea that, offering store owners the opportunity to buy into the idea and maybe use it as a marketing tool. And I think that's okay. That's a good thing. What I would suggest is maybe going to the DSA, one of their meetings first, gauging the level of interest from the board at the DSA, because they're really managing downtown and all of the restaurants and the merchants and those folks. Bring it through from them first, and then let's see what that appetite is. I think it's a good idea. I think it's something that, as an opt-in, is good, not as a mandatory.
Well, it's certainly a win-win. It's a win-win for the restaurants who are very excited about saving time and money, but not putting all of those things to every order. And it's certainly an environmental win where you don't have plastic in the landfills in the ocean. It takes hundreds of years for a plastic fork to decompose.
Yeah, so I would say let's build that interest
Yeah.
from the DSA, and let's build it through the merchants downtown, the restaurateurs downtown, and bring it through the DSA first. And then, once you gauge that level of interest, then I would say come back, and then we can approach the idea of a resolution.
Thank you.
Thank you. And we appreciate the work of the Environmental Commission. Thank you. All right, so next up is the affordable housing. So this is something that we've been working on for a long time, probably for the past 8 or 9 months. And everybody has a very different perception of what affordable housing is or should be or could be. The state of New Jersey has defined what it is and has mandated that every municipality create an affordable housing plan and begin to move forward with that. So what we did was we put together a team, and that team consisted of members of council, members of the planning board, member of the zoning board, our planner engineer, our affordable housing attorney, our economic development director, our administrator, and myself. And we met weekly over the past 8 months to begin to define what we saw as the potential for our affordable housing plan. And what we wanted to do was to create something that was very Somerville-centric. You know, there's a lot of cut and paste ideas out there, stealing from other communities and what they've done and trying to figure out. Somerville is very unique. We're 2.5 square miles. We've done things a little bit differently than I think a lot of other communities, and we've really defined ourselves very differently. I think from a residential perspective, from a commercial perspective, from a professional perspective, recreation. And we wanted this to reflect what we felt was Somerville-centric. So we set out, and over the last 8 months, we developed a very thorough, comprehensive, and I think a very good plan. And I know the folks around the table who put the effort into this also feel the same way, that this is something that is most appropriate for Somerville. And that was really our defining characteristic of this plan. We're going to have, the presentation is going to be broken up into 3 parts. Chris Zangaro, our redevelopment and our affordable housing attorney, will talk about the law as New Jersey has it, and the process by which we came to this point, and then what the benchmarks are moving forward under the law. Colin Driver will talk about our process and what we followed and how we attempted to comply with the law. I shouldn't say attempted, we did comply with the law. And then Mike Cole, our planner, will talk about the plan itself, how we got there, how we achieved our numbers, what the state's numbers are versus how we achieved our numbers. And then ultimately, the goal is how do we provide for those units over the course of the next 10 years or so. Glenn, anything you want to add to that?
Well, I just want to say that as these 3 gentlemen present the plan, one of the things that I noticed being in all the meetings and listening to different things and reading lots of different plans from different towns is I started to look at this as, you know, the state has set the destination. You know, that's whatever we need to meet for our affordable housing needs. But what we've tried to do is, rather than like setting the GPS and locking into just one route that's going to just take us straight there, one way and one size fits all, we've really tried to create multiple pathways that still get us to that same destination and leave the flexibility still within that structure. So I think hopefully you can hear that in their presentations as they share the details.
Great, thank you. Gentlemen, if you want to come up to the front desk, all 3 of you. And just make sure your microphones are on.
Council, it's good to be back. My name is Christopher Zingaro. I serve as at Raynon, Coughlin, Mincello. Are you able to hear me?
No, I think it.
You gotta push the button.
Yeah, you got a loose wire, I think.
There you go.
Yeah.
I serve at Reno, Coughlin, Mancello. We serve as Redevelopment Council and also Affordable Housing Council for the Borough. I was before you sometime in January, early in the winter, to discuss the first part of this process, but let me just give you a brief review of how we've gotten to this point in this stage of the Mount Laurel affordable housing process in New Jersey, because it's very unique among states in America, really. Starting in the 70s, there was a doctrine established that became known as the Mount Laurel Doctrine, by which municipalities had to affirmatively create the zoning opportunity for a municipality to bear its fair share, or to provide its fair share of the regional need for low and moderate income housing. That process has been tortured at times, long-winded at times, but it has moved. There was a process in the executive branch by which the executive branch would review municipalities' plans. By 2016, that process had broken down, and the courts said, we're stepping in. The executive branch will no longer review these plans. You'll come to the court. And in 2016, the third round, which covered a 10-year period from 2015 to 2025, municipalities who believed that they had an obligation because of the nature of their town, the demographics, came before the court to establish that they had the zoning mechanisms in place. There were many municipalities in the state who said, we have the zoning mechanisms in place, and we also provide natural opportunities for low and moderate income housing. The landscape has changed across New Jersey, and in 2024, the legislature passed a bill that was signed by the governor that instead of returning the process to the executive branch, said, let's keep it in the courts, but let's create a streamlined process by which the courts will assist identify what your obligations are, the number of units you have to provide, as well as to review housing element and fair share plans. These are the documents that establish what are the zoning mechanisms that we can provide so that housing can be created over the next 10-year period. The next 10-year period is referred to as the fourth round. It covers the years 2025 to 2035. Municipalities' obligations are to create the zoning mechanisms so that construction can commence by developers who are interested, and to create that housing over a 10-year period. So where have we? That is the lay of the law. Where have we been in the last 6 months? In January, the borough reviewed the non-binding recommendation of the DCA, the Department of Community Affairs, and determined what its obligation was. In Somerville's case, it mirrored the DCA. The courts reviewed that resolution and issued an order saying we recognize Somerville's obligation for new construction over the next 10-year period. And since that date, the borough has been working on crafting a plan. That plan needs to be submitted by June 30th, 2025. And the way the bill is structured is if you hit every deadline, you retain what's referred to as immunity from builder remedy lawsuits, which basically says that we are coming before the courts, where in this case it's a mediation forum that's meant to keep you out of litigation. And as long as you hit the deadlines and you show a good faith effort and you put forward a plan, you retain that immunity until you receive a grant of certification compliance that says you have a plan in place, now adopt it, and adopt any of the zoning mechanisms that are required. So by June 30th, that plan has to be submitted. There will be a 3-month period in which interested parties can come forward and challenge elements of that plan. That period runs on August 30th. And after that, if there are no challenges, over the course of the autumn, the program will review the proposed plan, and if it finds that that plan is acceptable, it will then advise the municipality, and the municipality will then have the opportunity to officially enact that housing element fair share plan and enact the ordinances that effectuate that zoning. So that is where we're at. Effectively, the final date in which the municipality has to act to put all the ordinances in place is March 2026. So the process is long, but you have to hit each deadline. The way that municipalities are handling this process is the planning board adopts the housing element and fair share plan, and as long as the council approves, they will then adopt a resolution endorsing that plan, and then we'll see how the program handles review of it.
Good. I think that was a great synopsis. Colin?
You know, I won't be saying much because between the mayor and Christopher, you've got a lot of information already. The critical dates, I'll start at the rear end and work forward. On the 28th of this month, the three of us will be presenting in detail the plan to the planning board. Tonight is a 10,000-foot view, more than anything else. And then on the 16th of June, we will come back to this board and present what we presented to the planning board on the 28th of this month. So it'll be a detailed explanation of what the plan contains prior to it being sent to Trenton for the DCA to review. As the mayor said and as Chris said, we started late last year and we worked very heavily through this year. Many iterations of the plan, a lot of research. Mike Cole did a lot of the lifting because he is the planner. And Chris and Mike in conjunction developed a 140-odd page document which is Somerville-centric. And a couple of the things that I will mention, we've developed a one sheet, which we will be putting on the website right prior to the 28th, so that it'll be available for people at the planning board presentation, and it'll be available for the council presentation as well. But I just want to mention one thing that is very Somerville-centric. How will we obtain compliance over the 10 years? Right, we're talking from now through 2035. Part of the plan is what we call an inclusionary ordinance, and Mike will talk more about it, but it's borough-wide. It's not just by a specific zone or a redevelopment area. It is a borough-wide ordinance that says anyone constructing new buildings, whether it be residential, and there's limits, which Mike will explain, or commercial, will be included in making a contribution of some form to the borough for affordable housing. It could be an in-kind contribution. It could be rehabilitation of existing, not up to scratch housing, for want of a better word. It could be through constructing something not on site but somewhere else in the borough, or it could be a combination of all of those things, and to be determined at the time of the application and then referred to council. So instead of just saying you will add 15% of the units that you're building for affordable housing, we've made it more flexible because there's not a lot of vacant space left in town. So how do we achieve the numbers that have been set for us is to be a little flexible and understanding. So when we get into the detailed presentation, we can get into the weeds a little bit and discuss that. But I think that's the backbone. We will not talk too heavily tonight about what affordable housing is or how it is determined, but the numbers are based on average income, median income for Somerset County. It's set, believe it or not, by HUD in Washington, D.C., and then it's adopted by the state of New Jersey. So those numbers are the driving numbers for applicability. And I think when we present on the 16th of next month, if you want to follow that line of discussion, we can do so then. So I'm going to hand it over to you, Michael.
Michael?
Thank you, Colin, and thanks for the mayor and council for the presentation. I have to say, it's kind of weird looking at myself in the screen. Typically, I'm out there, I'm like, is my head this shiny?
Mike, that's what
My
we see
God,
every day.
my head is really shiny. I might have to do something about this. Anyhow, we started from scratch on the fair housing plan and the housing element. The borough did not participate in rounds 1, 2, and 3. At the time, the borough was positioned, and the data supported it, that under fair market conditions, the rents, everything, it was happening under free market conditions. That changed in the last 10 years or so. So kudos to the borough who's coming up with a fair share plan. So the housing element was changed, and it's remarkable. The most current data was used, which is the 2023 census data. So the housing element shows you the growth that the borough has done. Wow, in 8 years. So the growth is phenomenal. So that was done. And then to address what's referred to as prospective need, which is just a fancy way of saying what did the DCA and what did the borough accept is how many housing elements that you're going to be anticipating in the next 10 years. And that was 74. And then this other term that you'll hear is the present need, which used to be referred to as the rehabilitation. That's not creating new housing. That's basically sprucing up housing that's challenged, plumbing, kitchens, and that forth. And the DCA's number was 103. So the fair share plan has to address the 74 number, which is to be built, and the present need, which is the 103, which is the rehabilitation. So to do that, we looked at all what the borough's done and did a vacant land analysis. And the borough was very proactive from the 70s and had the senior citizen building, which addresses basically affordable housing for seniors. And then you had the HUD program, the Somerville Housing Authority, which came out of the 70s too, under, it used to be called Section 8 and so forth. So the borough has been very proactive. So the plan incorporated some of the items that the borough didn't get credit for in the past, being the senior citizen building. So the borough doesn't have a lot of land around to build affordable housing, as everyone in this room knows. So with the vacant land analysis was done, and basically came up with one parcel of land. So the plan incorporates the regulations and addresses the uniqueness of the borough and addressing 22 units of affordable housing for the fair share plan. And the present need was addressed by doing what's called a windshield survey. Now, a windshield survey is nothing but looking at every house dwelling in the borough from 3 sides and figuring out whether it meets the criteria for needing to be rehabbed or a little help. And doing that, the number went from 103, which is the rehab number, down to 27. So the data is in that, and that was done. So we have the present need down to 27. We have the affordable housing number at 22. But the unique thing to the borough is, in the draft, in that the committee felt very strong that the ordinance should be in place to show the community what's going on, even though, as Chris said, technically maybe these ordinances don't need to be in place until March, but to show you where the plan was going, you have the development fee ordinance, and which talks about developments that are less than 5 units of housing, 4 or less, and exempts the single families and the 2 families, but it's basically a percentage, and that goes into the housing trust fund of the borough to address the rehab components and for the fair share components. So you have that development fee ordinance, which is borough-wide, and then you have the inclusionary ordinance, which Colin briefly talked on, which basically says it doesn't matter where in the borough you are, if you're creating 5 or more units, that you're going to have an obligation. And the plan doesn't speak to how exactly to do it, other than you're going to do it. You have ultimate flexibility. The developer can do it on site, it can do it somewhere, and when I say do it, create the affordable housing unit on the development, do it within the borough, or do the payment in lieu, which is in accordance of the statutes. So you can't have any more flexibility than that. Whatever is allowed by the regulations are in the housing plan to address. So the results of the windshield story were phenomenal. The borough, in my opinion, being around for 20 years, which is young compared to some of the people up there have been 20 years. You're a
What are you
pup.
saying, Mike?
Well, I'm saying at 20 years, I've been pointed out to me from both boards, the planning and the zoning board, that there's people, the generations in the town, that I sit with people that have been volunteering for 40 or 50 years, so 20 years is nothing to rave about. I'm going to say that, okay? But in my 20 years, a greenie, I've never seen the borough look so good from a environmental, not from environmental, but from a dwellings, the housings looks great. Yes, there's challenges, but it looks phenomenal over the last 20 years. And that number, the present need number, really reflects that, from 103 down to 27. And the trust fund will capture the monies for the rehab of these structures. And that's what you have in a nutshell. The borough looks great. I think the plan really is flexibility throughout the borough, have to deal with affordable housing, and it addresses the prospective need, which is the fancy way of saying what is the next 10 years, which is July of 2025 through July of 2035, what the anticipated growth is. And if we don't get it right, the inclusionary zoning captures it. If we have more growth, it's captured in the inclusionary zoning, which accounts for it. So that's the beautiful thing is I don't know if any community has done it this way, being most communities say this is the zone. We're going to have all affordable housing in this area, and you end up with 100% affordable units, which the borough did not want to do. For stigma, to spread it out, no one gets a free pass from a standpoint of not one zone throughout the borough. Whatever the demand or the need that creates affordable housing will be addressed. So I think that's a beautiful approach because it's equitable throughout the board. And of course, my crystal ball is always broken, so you don't know where the development's going to be. You think you know. That we get land use developments coming in that you never envisioned. So this would capture it in entirety. So that's what I love about the plan is it's not quote, quote, cherry picking any one zone. And it's all in-house. And that's the end of my soapbox.
No, very, very good. A couple of points, Mike. You brought up the one, which was the easy way would have been to just take and put one building up with our entire affordable housing need. And for a whole host of reasons, the entire committee felt that that wasn't good. Number one on mine was, I don't want that stigma. You know, if there's a young boy or girl going to school and they say where they live, and it comes with baggage, and I don't think that's appropriate. We've also taken it a step further. Under the law, correct me if I'm wrong, Chris, this really complies with for 5 units or more for our developer's fee. We've actually reduced it and also captured 4 units or less. So what happens is if somebody, let's say, wants to convert a 1-family to a 2 or a 3-family, there's a formula that has been created by the state which will capture a portion of that value, which can then go either they can comply with a 1 unit being affordable, or if it doesn't work, they can put into the trust fund, which would then allow us to administer rehabilitation or development in other areas. We're trying to take a very creative approach to this, and so it's not just structure. The idea is, and we kind of kicked this around, was, is there an ability to do tiny homes, which is kind of unique, and we all think there is. We also think that depending on zoning and area and whether it fits or not, but there is an avenue for that. One of the others is the idea of, and I call it incubator housing. And it's something a little bit different. And I'm going to say, for example, you know, there's a single parent who has 2 or 3 kids, and financially they're just being crushed. They just can't get out. If the borough has a couple of these incubator homes that are managed by the Affordable Housing Trust, we have the ability to pop a family in there for a year, for 2 years, to help them get up and get out. You don't want it to be a way of life. You want to be a way to a better life. And giving somebody that cushion of being able to live somewhere so they can start to create a little bit of financial stability in their lives is a great thing. The hospital has a program, it's called Healing Homes, and most people probably don't even know it's there. There's 2 or 3 homes that they have right now in Somerville. And these are folks that they vet, and they have medical issues as well as financial issues. And they're vetted by a team of folks, and they're brought into these homes, and they're there for 2 years, and they give them help, they give them guidance, medical care, financial guidance, counseling if necessary, help them with their kids, and then they're allowed to resume their lives and get on and get out. And to me is really what I see as a path out to a better life. You know, when you're talking affordable housing, there's a couple of caveats. One, affordable housing, the income levels are much higher than anybody thinks they are, much higher, and we'll be going through those at the next meeting. And the second part of that is, you know, the idea that for some, one affordable unit is way too many, and for others, 2,000 affordable units is not enough. So it comes down to what is right for Somerville, and I think that's what this entire committee kind of had as our benchmark. And we think we've put together a very good approach to this, a very flexible approach that allows for future councils and future planning boards to adapt to the needs at that time. It creates that flexibility. The flexibility creates creativity in how they approach that housing plan at that time. And I think that's very important. You know, we're just not thinking about right here and right now, because that's not proper planning, as you know. Right. We have to think down the road, what happens in 10, 20, 40, 50 years. And we have to create that flexibility to allow different decisions to be made for different times. And that's what this does. It doesn't take any of the teeth away from what we've implemented. It just allows how you distribute that and how you account for it. Art, you have anything you want to add to that?
Not right now, Brian.
Okay.
The committee did a great job, and they answered a lot of questions.
Thank you. So I'll open up to questions, if anybody has any questions for our professionals here.
Yeah, I have a question and comment, I think. I raised this at the last meeting. I am concerned about the equity of the 3 different approaches. I think they all have value, but in terms of the payment in lieu of, I have concern about the equity of that over the long-term investment. Someone dedicating an apartment in perpetuity versus a payment of maybe a few $100,000. And how can we equalize that in our ordinance and legislation to make this fair, equitable? And also, you talked about the long term, give us the money that we need as things get more expensive to do those rehab jobs. Because if we take $300,000 now, that $300,000 isn't going to go far in 10 years. So I think we have to look at the plan that the ordinance that we looked at last meeting, and see how we can fix that for a long-term view and equitable piece.
Well, I think, and maybe you guys can address this, and I understand the question you're asking about that money value, the financial value. It's tied to 2% of the assessed value.
The equalized assessed value, but one of the things that we've put into the ordinance is that we will defer over the long term to the state's changing of the regulations. The states give us the calculation, how to determine the contribution. We know that will change because of the fact you've got a group of people constantly looking at it. Some communities have included in their plan a fixed amount of money for the contribution. We are saying no, we will take the state's guidance and the state's calculation, so as inflation in fact hits, that amount of money will increase.
So it's money at the time. It's not, so if somebody donates $1 now, we're using it 10 years down the road. The whole concept behind it is if money is put into the trust, it should be spent. It should
But
be
is it
used.
equitable to the value of an apartment over 25, 35 years? That becomes the question. And then it doesn't mean that we have to follow the state law. We can exceed the state law, surpass it, correct?
I believe, but maybe that's something you can answer, Chris.
I'm not exactly sure what the limits over which you can shoot that statutory calculation, but what I can say is it's been heavily litigated, and that calculation was crafted by the state. It's very detailed, so it sets a good number of parameters. What I can say is the money that comes in doesn't necessarily need to go just to new construction. It can, over the course of 10 years, be used to deed restrict properties, single-family homes that might be getting more expensive. So there are ways in which you can use those monies to do innovative things that are not just new construction, but can go a long way in preserving existing homes that might be becoming too expensive over time. So there's a lot of ways you can use that money other than the sort of hard costs of construction. And
Well, that
we've
part I
seen
think I
that.
understood, but
Yeah.
I'm still fixated on the equity portion. So I'd like to see the math on what's the value of one unit across the street dedicated to low income versus 2.5% of an assessed value of a property. Am I making sense?
Yes, the round 3 of the regs is, it's got to be 3 pages on establishing the value, and it's open-ended is what Colin is saying, being there is a formula in place right now, and it talks about the land value, but what Colin is saying is what the plan says is it's open-ended, so as those values go up, to your point, it's captured in the ordinance already, that we don't have, it's not a fixed number based on May of 2025.
Understood it's not a fixed number,
Yeah.
but how does it equate over time, right? That 2.5%,
Yeah.
how does that equate to, as I just said before, a dedicated apartment complex over whatever the law requires, 25, 30 years or more?
And I understand what you're saying, but I think that's the flexibility of this program that we're creating. It allows the council and the planning board to ultimately determine at that time, is it better for us to approach rehabilitation in this instance? Or is it better to have inclusionary housing in this instance? Or is it better to do off-site new construction or off-site acquisition? That's the whole idea behind this plan, that it creates that flexibility for this body to decide at that time.
I was going to say that it's not up to the developer to pick and choose what they want. It's in coordination with our agreement. So we have to agree to whatever is discussed. It just leaves all those options on the table.
But I think the experience is if we don't set the bar high enough, we don't agree, or we get less, or we don't have the money down the road that we may need, or it's unfair to the person dedicating the long-term unit. So it's all about equity is what I'm saying.
The last thing I can just add to that is the way your ordinance has been designed, the draft that was presented, by citing to the regulations, it provides the flexibility. Let me just give you a little bit of context. At the moment, the DCA is working on regulations which will govern the 4th round, which potentially would address these calculations. So there's a lot of work being done at the very moment that municipalities are working to get these plans done. There are also regulations being drafted by the state this might be one element that revises those calculations that municipalities would be guided by. So by taking this strategy of, instead of setting a specific number, but by referring to the statutory regulations and then also including language that says that, you know, the numbers would reflect any further regulations, you're capturing the potential that the state will craft more distinct regulations from the 2015 round. So you're providing the flexibility that when the state does issue regulations, should they amend the structure that's in place, you'll capture it, the municipality will benefit from it without the need to open the process back up.
Okay. Any other questions? Gentlemen, thank you very much. We'll see you next week?
Next Wednesday.
Next Wednesday at the planning board. Awesome. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. I'll ask for a motion to open the meeting to the public.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call.
Sorry. Council members: Andrew Conti,
Yes.
Glenn Denny,
Yes.
Randy Pitts.
Yes.
Gina Stravic.
Yes.
Roger Vroom.
Yes.
All right, public portion is now open. Please state your name and address for the record, and please address your comments to me. You're it. Yeah, please.
Mark Sanfrone, I'm the owner of Pop's Bike Shop on 34 East Main Street. I'm coming to you tonight. I was here last year with a similar observation. We had another incident today where nothing has changed with what I had previously come to you with. I understand during the pandemic, because of the need for social distancing, we let a lot of the restaurants put chairs and tables out on the sidewalks. I understand the need for that. Pandemic's over. We, for the most part, and I drove up and down Main Street today just to double check, for the most part, a lot of the restaurants are very tidy. Tables and stuff up against the buildings, sidewalks are very clear. A lot of them, such as Wolfgang's and Savor and stuff, really nice look, so they can have some outdoor seating, but it doesn't impede or mess with the sidewalks. We have a couple of restaurants who just are not following guidelines. My son went today to get lunch for the staff, and on his way back from Courthouse Deli, there was an elderly lady with her daughter who was stopped dead in her tracks because she had a walker. She couldn't get down the sidewalk because there are so many chairs, tables, planters, and everything in front of a couple of restaurants. She physically could not get past them. I have customers, which is why I came last year, who have told me they will not come to Somerville anymore because they are wheelchair bound. They cannot get down the sidewalk. So now we're putting barriers up to people who have physical limitations and handicaps because somebody wants to put a couple of extra chairs and tables out in front of their store, and they just don't want to follow the regulations that have been put forth. There are planters in front of the gas lines, and they're right up against the gas lines. They're almost 8 feet out into the sidewalk. You literally, the umbrellas that are there, I'm 5'11" and shrinking daily. And when I walk down to get lunch, I am batting my head with umbrellas. It's ridiculous. I've called the Borough for code enforcement. I asked them to look into it, gave them my name and number, said you're more than welcome to come on down and I'll take a walk down Main Street with you. Nothing's been done, heard nothing from it. I don't understand why we are just turning a blind eye to these 3 or 4 restaurants who have just decided the sidewalk is their domain. And when you look into their restaurants, they're 3/4 empty. Like, if you guys need more space, then go rent some more space. You can't take over the sidewalks, and it's bad. And who do I need to talk to, or who needs to be made aware? This is an issue that is affecting the quality of travel up and down Main Street in Somerville. It's a real issue. Nobody seems to want it. I went to DSA. They said they have nothing to do with it. Not their gig. They can't enforce anything. I've called code enforcement, nothing has changed. What needs to get done? Who needs to be contacted? It's not that hard. There's literally 3 or 4 bad players on Main Street. Any single one of you guys can walk down Main Street, and it is massively obvious. But when it starts messing with my customers, and especially those who have handicaps, it upsets me. I've been coming to you since last year for this. What's it gonna take? We're getting busier. Now we're gonna be coming up with Tour Somerville. We're gonna be coming up with cruise nights. There's all kinds of events that happen in the spring and the summer in Somerville. Sidewalks need to be clear. They need to be a safe place for people to walk down the street with strollers and families and wheelchairs and walkers and everything else. What needs to be done? Who's the person that's responsible for taking out a tape measure and saying, you're too close to the planters, you're too close to the lampposts, you're too far away, you're not supposed to have stuff up against gas pipes? Who is it? And why aren't they taking care of it?
So once everybody's had an opportunity to comment, I will then address.
I appreciate it.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Hearing none, I'll ask for a motion to close.
So moved?
Second?
Discussion? Roll call.
Council members Andrew Conti,
Yes.
Glenn Denny,
Yes.
Randy Pitts.
Yes.
Gina Stravic.
Yes.
Roger Vroom.
Yes.
Okay. So you did come here last year, and I remember, and I can tell you that week that you came, I'm the guy who went out with the tape measure. I did it myself. And what I can tell you is at that time, they were compliant. I believe it was 3 feet. I think it was 36 inches as the route through. They were compliant. Does it creep over time? Probably. Does code enforcement need to go out? Maybe sporadically? Yes, probably. There is a zoning ordinance behind all of the outdoor seating. It's there, and maybe the responsibility of the DSA is education of the restaurant owners or those stores that are having an issue. I also believe, and I'm going to raise the ire of some, that the planters that are out there that are in disrepair need to go almost immediately. And the sidewalks, because around some of those areas, and I'm very familiar with it, are horrendous. And if I'm reading into where you're saying that the woman had a problem, part of that problem is the sidewalk. It's a wreck. It's dangerous. And one of the things that we have is what we call constructive notice. So if we're aware of it and we don't fix it or attempt to fix it, it becomes a bigger problem. So I agree with you, and I think the solution is 2, maybe threefold. One, I'll go back out there again with my tape measure, because when I show up with the tape measure and the store owner's outside and they see me looking at something, it changes things. It's not as adversarial usually, and we're not trying to be adversarial. What we're trying to get is compliance. But I can do that again, and make sure that they leave that 3-foot gap. The second part of it, and we're working with environmental to try to figure out a treescape plan. But I think in the short term, and I was eating at one of those restaurants yesterday afternoon, and I saw a woman nearly trip and go down, and it's a problem. It's a big problem. So I think maybe taking the planters out, grading as best we can, putting some mulch down, and getting those as best we can until the street tree plan comes into full fruition. But you know I'll turn to council in a moment. And I think it's the enforcement sporadically over the course of the summer, because I think at the early season it's compliant, and then there's a little bit of creep as you go on. So.
It's crept out pretty good already.
Has it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right.
A lady couldn't get down the sidewalk.
Yeah. All right. So.
And I've actually had, because I want to be a
So
good neighbor.
I got to cut you off.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I got to cut you off, and no, and I know, and we'll have a conversation. It's, so I'm just going to turn to council, and those planters that we can identify that are a serious problem. Anybody have an issue with us taking them out ASAP?
Well, I think that it's just not taking the planters out. And we've been up and down this this road for 20 years.
Yes, we have.
And as the gentleman points out, is just failure on our part to act. Most recently, we had a walkability study done. Myself, members of the DSA and the Environmental Commission participated in a walkability study. We have the plan. We have options. Rich O'Neill's been here before and spoke about maintenance. There's complete lack of maintenance. So I've gone round and round for 6 years on this. Whose responsibility is it? Well, now, all of a sudden, it's not the DSA's responsibility. It's the building owner's responsibility. So how are we going to hold them accountable, and when are we going to hold them accountable, colleagues? Because this is us, and we have not reacted. We always take the nice way out, and we want to give the restaurant people the benefit of the doubt. And as you point out, it's just a few people, but we don't want to penalize anyone. We don't want to endure financial hardship. But it's at the demise of people who need safe walking. And the other piece is that we also have the problem, yes, with the trees and yes, with the uneven sidewalks, but there are structural things that we can simply do without tearing up the sidewalk, especially this time of year. And I've suggested these things before. Let's put some benches. There's that new store on Main Street that creates these benches. Let's put those in the areas that are uneven so people aren't tripping. Let's do something proactive and spend a little bit of money to make this work. And if it has to be on the borough, then I guess it has to be on the borough, because I don't think we're getting the cooperation from the building owners and the DSA. So let's make an immediate fix. We talk about how great our town is, but if we can't fix our sidewalks, we're not so great.
Other comments?
Yeah, if I could, I mean, the encroachment on the sidewalks is not just a problem on Main Street, but it's happening in other places in other ways. You know, just people not maintaining their landscaping or whatever it is, it's starting to diminish the ability to go up and down Bridge Street and other places. But the specific problem that was pointed out here by the gentleman, I experienced smacking my head on those umbrellas multiple times now, walking my dog at night and whatnot, and they're still out there when they shouldn't be. I really would welcome the opportunity to come with you when we go around and measure, so that I can see how the conversations go, because I'd be interested in seeing if maybe there is some further revision to the ordinance maybe that we could consider, or other actions that would, you know, I'm big on promoting and not punishing if we can, but this is a situation where it sounds like it's gone on long enough, and the bad actors are few. It's not many, so I feel like whatever we can do to motivate them in any type of form to comply with what we need is what we should be considering at this point, because cruise night becomes impossible to walk up and down the sidewalks. I mean, I have 2 small children. It's just not safe to be in the crowd when it's like that. So it's something we should address. I'm with Gina on this, that if the buck needs to stop here, if people aren't taking responsibility for it, then let's jump in full, you know, let's get all the way in both feet and figure out how to solve this problem, because our walkability in town is one of the major reasons most people are here and moved to town in the last few years. So if we lose that, then we lose, you know, one of our trump cards for every other municipality around us. So let's make it safe. Let's make it easy. Let's make it, you know, let's find a solution here that's reasonable for everybody, but addresses the issue. Because, you know, again, I've experienced it personally. I've watched elderly folks have trouble in our town, and you know, as the old planning adage goes, it needs to be good for you know, grandma and the children. You can't just design a space for people who are able-bodied at all times. So I'd love to be part of that solution with you guys, but it's definitely something that needs to be
Other
discussed.
comments? Anybody?
And having a specific ordinance that lays it all out, obviously legally, yes. But I also think, you know, you mentioned an educational component. I think having a set of standards that is easy to understand and can be easily distributed every season and as a reminder would be very important as well. I mean, I'm a teacher. They give us the list of what we have to do for our fire code every year, even though it might be the same list. They don't give us the legal interpretation or, you know, the legal standard of it. They tell us, no, it can't be 13 inches from there. And they give it very plain English so we can meet those standards and stay safe that way. I think we probably need to do the same thing for the business owners there.
Other comments? Anybody?
I think we have to remember that previously the DSA did step in, and Randy can correct me if I'm wrong on this, but they were providing grants and helping business owners to get things fixed. And so the expectation became, well, the DSA will come and save me. And now, as the mayor said, there needs to be an educational component, so that way people comply. We talked about this a couple of meetings back, and we've discussed about at the beginning of every year, the sidewalk cafes have to apply to the borough. And they have to sign with the borough so that we know where the sidewalk cafes are, and there is already a list of what they need to do. So all of that is already in place. It's the enforcement of it, and that is where we start out the season, as we've discussed, letting them know, hey, you know, you have to fix this, and then we go from there. I think us, the borough, spending money to fix sidewalks outside of businesses, I think that that is an overreach. And I only say that because then what stops it from then we go to, you know, the front of my house or the front of your house? Why do the businesses that then get preferential treatment, we're gonna come in there and fix their sidewalk? That's where, at this point, when we start having these conversations, I realize, and certainly, walkability needs to be an important factor in our town, because as has been stated, that's why people come here. We've been lenient with the businesses. At this point, once we have, and I think we've already gone over this, didn't we already notice everyone that needed to have their stuff fixed?
That's correct. I was going to wait for you all to speak until I gave you an update on where we're at from the last time this matter came in front of us.
So we've noticed them. Now it comes the time where we don't like to be the heavy, but if we have given due process, and the most important thing of government is due process. We sit and we say, here is what our expectations are. If you don't follow those expectations, these are the consequences. If that is the stage that we're at this point, it is not on the borough to go and fix people's problems that they don't feel that they can fix themselves. We have given out what the expectations are. We have made it clear. We have sent out notice. They signed documentation. Now it is on those businesses to comply. And at this point, we are a business-friendly town, and that is what we should be. But if we have done all of the steps that we would do with any other circumstance, I think it's prudent at this point for us to follow through. That is what has to happen at this point. Since we've done everything that we've, as a council, when we had this conversation the last time, those are the things that we came up with. We said, we're going to follow these steps. So now it's time to finish the swing.
Well, we also said that we're waiting for grants. Do we have any grants awarded?
No, the grant, wasn't the
No,
grants for
so
public?
I mean, if you want, I could speak at the end.
Yeah,
I'm
let
very
me,
familiar.
so we've got this great, I'm gonna try to collapse this, because we have this intersection of commerce, accessibility, environmental, infrastructure, safety, and it's all coming to a head. So I think we have to, while this is vetted out, I think there's a few things that we have to do in the short term. One, to alleviate the immediate, is that education, because I'm all for compliance, as opposed to just going out and issuing violations. So it's education of compliance, and that's both between Borough Hall and the DSA. Allow them tomorrow to begin educating folks, the restaurant owners and the store owners, all of them downtown. You know, it's not just isolation, it's all. Second, then, post that is enforcement, and it's the consistent enforcement, identifying a timeline and going to make sure that they're compliant. The third, and this is from the safety standpoint and the accessibility standpoint, I think we need to immediately remove some of those tree grates. Not the trees, just so we're saying, not the trees, because I know that's going to raise a whole lot of stuff. But I think the tree grates, if we can get rid of those and we can start to even some space out, potentially, that may start to reduce some of that. We've had too many folks tell us that it's dangerous. We're now on constructive notice, which creates a problem. Correct, Kevin?
I mean, that's correct. I mean, obviously, I mean, in this whole thing is, just so you know, is this has been a very active matter with the borough and with the council. So, I mean, Councilman Stravic brought up the RideWise program. We did take their study. We had Brian Blute, our enforcement, go out and put everybody on notice of violation. There wasn't a fine attached with that. It was to fix the items that appeared in that study. Those that could fix it did make the adjustments. There are several that's very difficult to fix because they involve the tree grate, the tree, and other things. They're more complicated. The Borough Council then authorized an application for $1.5 million about 4 meetings ago, which you approved. You also, it's a complex application. You also approved Bruno Associates to assist me in writing that. It's due at the end of the month. The DSA is familiar with it. They have assisted me in some of these issues as well. And the next step would be for those particular ones that are difficult to do, it does need a grant. So we did need 9. Well, we needed a couple support letters. Councilman Pitts got me the support letters from both the property owners and the businesses, about 9 of them, shared in the process of trying to get those to get this grant. So there's no one there's not a property owner saying, I don't want to help, I don't want to fix it. It's a little more complicated. They feel the tree grates are the borough's responsibility. They feel the trees are the borough's responsibility. Yes, the sidewalks are their responsibility. The courts have been very clear that commercial properties are the responsibility of the property owner, right? So that the borough, and even if the borough were to get the grant and proceed with it, the property owners would have to agree to accept the liability after that project is complete, and they understand that. So it is a little difficult on the more complex ones. The easy ones were done. If you went out there, people brought up pavers and they cleaned them up. Obviously, in the same time this is happening, PSE&G is digging up, laterals. So it does look a little messy out there. But if you look at the low-hanging fruit, that was done. It's really the bigger, items.
Yeah, and that's where the intersection, if it's the store owner's responsibility or the property owner's responsibility, they're gonna say, well, the trees are tearing up my sidewalk, the tree's gotta go.
That's
And
correct.
what we're trying to do is to balance that conversation, and the effort to fix it, and identifying. So it's not an easy answer, it's not. So I think what we have to do first is let's take that low-lying fruit, and it's education, number one. And let's contact the DSA tomorrow, and help store owners understand what their responsibility is. Second, then, on the heels of that would be enforcement and just sending folks out on an interim basis or on a regular basis. And then 3, I think we have to identify those tree grates that are causing a serious problem or impeding flow. And let's just take them out. We've taken them out in other areas, and there's been no issues with it. It looks better, it opens everything up a little bit, and it cleans it up a little, too. So I think that's warranted as well.
And as far as I know, we got a little off track with the infrastructure, but the sidewalk cafes, Councilman Vroom's correct, they re-register every year, and we do a measurement every year. Some of those properties, some of the restaurants have not re-registered yet. Obviously, they usually do so after. They're supposed to do so after Memorial Day. But in those cases, we've been receiving them in, and they go out and measure them. And there's no doubt there's creep. And we'll continue to evaluate that as well.
So thank you for creating a very spirited discussion. It was good discussion. It was. I appreciate that. Thank you. All right, item number 10, ordinance for introduction. Ordinance number 2765 is amending Chapter 166-65's Schedule 21A on street parking metered zone to reflect that both sides of Division Street between South Street and Veterans Memorial Drive shall have a 3-hour time limit at a flat fee of $1 per hour. Kind of self-explanatory. I'll make comment as soon as this comes introduced. So public comment on item number 2765. Mr. O'Neill.
Richard O'Neill, 124 West Coast Street, Somerville. Go to the post office, it costs you $1 to bring that letter.
I agree with you, and that's not going to happen.
Are we not
The stamp costs $1 almost, Rich.
So, any other public comment on 2765? Okay. Motion for well, you know what, even before we do a motion for introduction. Yeah, please.
So we have the borough has a parking committee, and we met with the parking committee. Right now, to go to the post office, you're probably paying $1 anyway, or you're parking illegally, because the spots in front of the post office were historical meters. So they couldn't be managed through enforcement because they require weights and measures. There's one meter out there, one. What they sign that says these are historical meters. So what happens is everybody just parks there all day long for free, basically. So, and I know I just told the world this, that you could park there for free. And so the people that really go to the post office, the truth of the matter is they're either parking across the street because the free spots are taken, or they're parking illegally. So this came about in the parking meeting when we tried to address it and try to figure out what the issue is, because again, we had 1 meter left that was historical. I had reached out to the Historic Advisory Commission through Phil Decker, because we dealt with this issue 15 years ago when we decided to punt it at that time because they were historical. So I reached out to Phil Decker and advised them that there is 1 historical meter left. The rest of the block is free, which is inconsistent with the entire street. So the thought was to remove that 1 historical meter that's left. And the reason there's 1 left is they got knocked over, and we don't have them to replace. So I offered to Phil, find a location to put it, whether it's in front of the fire museum or somewhere else that would have some relationship. But having it in front of the post office is doing a disservice to everybody, because people cannot park there and go into the post office only if they get lucky, just like you can go across the street. So having a meter there that 1 meter there has, and having the rest of the spots empty, doesn't have any value.
Yeah, and I mean, I understand the theory behind it, and we had another spirited discussion on this 13 years ago. And it was interesting because Somerville was one of, I think, 2 communities in the entire country that still had penny meters. And I think that's kind of nice. Does it make economic sense? Not a bit. But it's something nice. As Rich says, I'm going to drop off a letter. And I go to the post office. There's a lot of turnover there. There is. There's not a lot of people parking in front of the post office for any length of time. I don't support this. I don't think it's needed. I think it will actually cause a problem for a lot of folks going to the post office. And I know there's only 4 or 5, maybe 5 spaces.
Currently, at that location, there's digital meters.
Yeah, they snuck up.
They're not supported by this ordinance. I mean, they would be supported by this ordinance.
Yeah, and I think we should actually try to find penny meters somewhere. That's. I know you're looking at me like I'm nuts, but.
I would just say the
Gallagher,
Historic
where am I gonna
Advisory
find
would
those?
probably be a better agency to find a historic meter than I would be.
Well, I think there's a better way to handle it rather than creating a $1 an hour meter in front of the post office. I think that there's something. I think we need to go back to the table on that one.
Is the $1 an hour equivalent to what it is in the parking lots?
It's equivalent to what's on the street.
Yeah.
So the street already has meters on one side, not on the other. So that's equivalent to $1 an hour throughout the whole district, but right on that same street. And as well as on South Street, because there's no historic meters there anymore.
So what if we just did post office parking only, 15-minute limit?
That's what it is now.
I mean, that's an option.
I mean, you could. And I don't think we should litigate it here. I think
that's an option. Listen, we're bringing on a parking consultant as well to assist us with a lot of issues that we have related to parking, because the last time we've evaluated, it's been 15 years.
Well, yeah, and we're kind of angling towards pay on foot stations.
Yeah,
and
so we can examine that in the process. Keep in mind, I don't want to, there's not a lot of manpower put into parking, so to enforce a 15-minute parking would be, someone would have to laser chalk it or something to figure out if the person was there for 15 minutes. Or I don't know how else you would do that other than having a meter that was for 15 minutes. And I think that one of the things we learned last time was that we had a lot of variety, which caused a lot of confusion. So the key was to have a uniform system in place, and these are really the only stragglers out there.
Well, my suggestion would be, let's let the consultant take a look at it. Can we just let this fall off? Is there anybody who wants to introduce this?
I was gonna suggest that, why don't we go back to the consultant with it and see what they come back and bring it back after?
Do we have to vote on this down, or can we just let it fall off the table? No. Yeah. Yep. Okay, so we can just let it fall off, unless anybody wants to introduce it, to bring it to a vote. Okay, good, all right. Thanks, Rich.
Thanks, Rich.
Took a little bit to understand where you stood on it, but. All right, ordinance number 2763 for public hearing and adoption. This is an ordinance providing funding for various capital purposes for the Borough of Somerville and appropriating $2,175,800 for such purpose. These are various items that the borough will bond for over time. And do we have any, well, actually, call for a motion to open the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call.
Council members, Andrew Conti.
Yes.
Glenn Zaney.
Yes.
Randy Pitts.
Yes.
Gina Stravic.
Yes.
Roger Vroom.
Yes.
Public hearing is now open. Hearing no public comment, I'll ask for a motion to close.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call.
Council members, Andrew Conti.
Yes.
Glenn Zaney.
Yes.
Randy Pitts.
Yes.
Gina Stravic.
Yes.
Roger Vroom.
All right, and a motion for adoption, please.
So moved.
Second?
Discussion? Roll call.
Council members, Andrew Conti.
Yes.
Glenn Zaney.
Yes.
Randy Pitts.
Yes.
Gina Stravic.
Yes.
Roger Vroom.
Yes.
Okay. Consent resolutions, any to be pulled off for further discussion?
138, please.
Okay?
I do want to make a comment on that because the resolution is correct in the agenda, but the resolution number is incorrect in the document, so just.
Okay. Was that your question, Gina, or no, you had a different one?
No.
Okay, all right. So, 136 is approving tax overpayment refund for 254 Altamont. 137 is approving the New Jersey Triumph Association to utilize parking spaces in front of the historic courthouse on August 15th from 5 to 9 p.m. 139 is approving the hiring of lifeguards for the 2025 pool season. 140 is approving the hiring of Darius Hernandez as full-time driver laborer effective May 27 at a rate of $23 per hour. 141 is approving Chapter 159 for State of New Jersey 2024 Recycling Tonnage Grant, 25 Tonnage Grant. 142 is approving Chapter 159 from the National Opioid Settlement Trust. 143, authorizing Tie to Town Pink 2025 event for Breast Cancer Awareness Month, October of 25. 144 is authorizing application for funding through the Governor's Council on Substance Use Disorder and authorizing acceptance of the award. 145 is authorizing the Somerville Rescue Squad to install a oven range at 135 West End Avenue, borough leased building, and waiving all inspection fees and reflecting the former range was privately owned and was from the site was removed prior to the lease commencement. 146 is amending resolution 25-047, application for a supplemental HDSRF grant for additional remediation activities at the landfill BDA redevelopment area, adding a second whereas stating the site will be redeveloped within the specified time located on Route 206 North in the borough of Somerville. 147 is amending resolution 25-129, authorizing payment to the New Jersey Economic Development Authority, the $500 application fee for a supplemental grant from the Hazardous Discharge Site Remediation Fund, adding a second whereas stating the site will be redeveloped within the specified time and correcting the amount to $40,500 from $40,000 for the remediation of certain sections of the Somerville landfill BDA. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Roll call.
Council members, Andrew Conti.
Yes.
Glenn Zaney.
Yes.
Randy Pitts.
Yes.
Gina Stravic.
Yes.
Roger Vroom.
Yes.
All right, 138 is awarding a contract to Diamond Construction for the 23 Safe Streets to Transit for the Borough of Somerville, New Jersey, in the total amount of $241,575.66. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Discussion.
Question, what is the 223,000 spent on?
241,000.
241,000?
That's it's actually a road reconstruction project. It's a grant project. And I apologize, I thought in the document it actually read the project, but it actually doesn't, so I apologize on that. And it's not coming to me right now as to what road that is.
Okay.
If
So
you want to
It
pull
says
it.
Safe Streets to Transit, so that was a
Well,
grant program we got?
That's a grant, yeah.
So it just has to be somewhere near the train station?
Not necessarily.
Yeah, it would be a route to the train
Yeah.
station. It could be close proximity or a
Okay.
little further out.
Just shoot me an email when you
Yeah.
remember.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, roll call.
Council members, Andrew Conti,
Yes.
Glenn Denny.
Yes.
Randy Pitts.
Yes.
Tina Stravic.
Yes.
Roger Vroom.
Yes.
All right, Roger, bills and vouchers.
Oh, boy, it's a big one tonight. It is the second quarter, so as we are the collector of taxes for the borough, the amount tonight is a little bit larger than we're used to. But we have in there the library tax, which is $165,819.83. County, which is $1,208,940.02. Open space, which is $125,688.49. The school, which is $6,778,102.25. And the borough's share of the bills and vouchers for this month is $1,715. $1,715. Let me do that again. I'm going to get it this time, I promise. $1,715,265.36. It has been a long day. For a total for bills and vouchers for this month, or this meeting, excuse me, of $9,993,815.95. That is my motion to pay bills and vouchers.
Second.
Discussion, roll call.
Council members, Andrew Conti.
Yes.
Glenn Denny.
Yes.
Randy Pitts.
Yes.
Gina Stravic.
Yes.
Roger Vroom.
Yes.
All right, Councilman Denis, I will ask for a motion for adjournment.
I move to adjourn.
Second.
I was hoping you guys want to stay.
No.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?